Hello, everybody. I'm Russell Hill. I'm your host at WTF. And for all what the fixed ops is what you're listening to today. And I'm joined by.
Hello, everyone. I'm Charity, your co-host here. And today we have Mike Keene, not King. He is the VP of Sales and Chief Revenue Officer at Chameleon Limited. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience, tell everyone a little bit about you.
So my name is Michael Keene. I am, as you said, the Chief Revenue Officer at Chameleon Limited. I come to Chameleon via a variety of jobs within the automotive world. I started back in early 2003 as a BG distributor. I was with that company for 18 years, ended up as a co-owner over a couple states. And then just through some attrition, I needed to try something else, grow my skills. So I went to work for a big dealer group that I had previously been the BG rep for and consultant. I did that for 4 or 5 years, working with Jim, our owner, for the past probably 15 years or so, slowly helping him develop this product, watching it start to expand and grow, and then finally came on board just a couple months ago.
Nice. That's great. Remind us again what Chameleon does. What do you guys add?
Chameleon Limited is a data analytics company focusing on fixed ops, allowing a level of information to be transposed from your DMS and providing an accurate window with reasonable and needed analytics so that whether we're talking to a dealer principal, a fixed operations manager, service manager, all the way down to advisor or parts counter person, they are able to see relevant numbers to their needs to better analyze their own performance. What we really focus on in the industry are two things: accountability and retention through employee growth.
I do recall that when we had Jim Bernasic on a while back, and it sounds like a really cool product that you guys have.
It's really an efficient time saver that allows for something to happen in the industry that's needed to happen for a while, and that is true accountability. I think that it has shifted away from commonplace within most dealerships because of the attrition of staff. We have, I don't want to say a lack of talent, but a lack of trained talent. The dealer group that I worked for previously, I was a training manager for fixed operations for them. And as I came on board, the number one goal was to increase their bench strength. They had already pulled every advisor that they had capable of moving to a service manager. And if they didn't start to increase that bench strength, they were simply going to be promoting through attrition. And what used to be a good advisor does not always make for a good manager, especially if there's no proper training there. What I see, especially as a vendor in the industry, is a lack of training above basic advisor skills. And that leads people to holes that they don't know how to get out of. A lot of times I found that they are only as good as their predecessor. And that, if you have a good predecessor, is amazing. But again, with a lack of trained talent available, it's a downgrade each time you have to promote through attrition.
Speed of the pack is set by the leader, huh?
That's exactly.
It's really interesting because there's a huge focus on fixed operations. And I've seen the product and I know Jim real well. It is phenomenal. It is cutting edge. It's the best of the best out there. It just no doubt. And so you guys are joined exactly right. But here's what I see day in, day out. Don't have any time. Hiring advisors, hiring technicians, people calling in sick, equipment failures, heat cases, meetings with the GM, meetings with the OEM. It's like leadership, empowering people and then holding them accountable are really, really critical. And it sounds like, because one of the questions is what problems are you looking to solve? And the problems are, you don't just deal with metrics and numbers, but understanding that, but it's really about the personal growth. Am I hearing that or what?
Absolutely. I feel like a lot of times in the fixed operations world, I'm just going to use that time of the year when you're doing reviews. When you're calling your staff in, some of the staff have got a level of confidence that they shouldn't have, and some of them have a lack of it where they should actually be very proud of themselves. The problem with accountability within the industry is if you haven't already set up a base where your team is transparent in what you're going to hold them accountable, it can be extremely brutal up front because extracting the data from the DMS, it's difficult for a service manager and service director to do. It is almost impossible for an advisor to do. So unless you're the type of service manager who regularly does RO reviews with your staff, you are a lot of times presenting them with information that they had no idea they were excelling so far in or falling so far behind with
Sure.
their current workload. Providing them with the data that is simple to read and very easily understandable really does create an accountability model that can be expanded and is welcome instead of staff members pushing back on it with great regularity. I've always viewed service managers or fixed ops directors as one of two types of people. I've only met a few that have both of these characteristics, but essentially many of them are spreadsheet managers where their staff is well aware of their numbers, but they have no direct time to manage and increase that staff knowledge and performance, or they are very good personnel managers and they and their staff really don't have a good idea of their own metrics outside of some very key basic ones or whatever your dealer principal is holding you accountable to.
So, I think I had a similar question for Jim when he came along, but is there sort of a fine line with this solution as it comes to, sort of babysitting or, watchdogging over an employee rather than holding them accountable or motivating them?
The system that we use actually allows for a customizable benchmark. I don't think that many service managers look out on their drive and see a whole bunch of very equally talented service advisors.
No
You've got
doubt.
a few very good ones and a few that you're either limping along or are flat newbies and you're just trying to show them the way. A lot of times, if you've got time to manage staff, it is you're managing the bottom 20%. And that is very difficult to develop the top 20%, which, if you're doing things right, will become your peers, your managers, your future fixed ops directors. And unless you can empower them to help grow themselves, time is the most precious thing we have in this industry by far. And spending it with that top 20% a lot of times is by far more rewarding and beneficial. But because we're only trying to solve the problems, because if you're a manager in fixed ops, you're not only a personnel manager, you're a facilities manager, you're a warranty manager, you're
That's right.
you hold a variety of different of job set skills, and managing the time is exceptionally difficult. When I met Jim, he was a fixed ops director for a top 40 group and a customer of mine. I was amazed at the level of information he passed from that fixed ops director position down through the service manager and service advisors. But the time that took to run those reports, create those slide decks so that he could properly pass it down in a format that is understandable and comprehensible took a tremendous amount of time. And I immediately saw, as he started to develop an automated system, which became Time AI for Chameleon, that would be such an efficient time saver, because I could only view it as though Jim made X amount of money. And if he spent 20% of his time just running the numbers for those reports, it was extremely expensive for that group to be able to have
Sure.
that knowledge pass through. The program that he has developed essentially automates that so that nightly those numbers are done, again, in a perspective for each person who is using the system. So, for instance, a dealer principal or fixed ops manager can view the entire group at a very high line level, but still have the ability to drill down within 3 clicks to the RO level, so that you could very easily manage your staff or pass it along to say, hey, what's going on with this? Or even just the small little tasks that, as a BG rep, for instance, I would get them motivated to, we would do a big training on fuel services or fluid exchanges. And then the service manager would support that with maybe a 1 day spiff or a focus on it. If he doesn't have the ability to extract that data, there's no follow-up. So it would be one thing if he's able to nightly give them a report that says, this is how many customers you had, this is how often we recommended it, this is how this is our penetration rate for actual uptake and sales from the customer base. That kind of feedback from a manager, so that A, the staff knows you're looking at it, but B, that you're going to follow up and truly not just reward the success, but also try to help coach the failure. It makes you a far more effective manager.
Mhm.
You said something near and dear to my heart because of the attention span that people have today. I love that 3-click thing. I noticed that, and the whole product was around just clicks. Where before, some of that information I don't even think you could collect, but most of it, from what I understand, you could. But it was extremely cumbersome and time consuming. Where this is really fast and easy and transparent. And so, with all your experience with BG and automotive groups, et cetera, training, how did you end up here?
I have a desire to push and retain good people in this industry. And I found that those that are empowered with enough knowledge can make it on their own, let alone help develop a staff, grow to the next level. It's just so often what I was recognizing was that managers were, again, managers only because of attrition. And
Sure.
then I would watch a very good, dedicated advisor that loved his job, enjoyed his group, go to a position where maybe now, without the proper data available, was struggling in the position. And then he changes his whole attitude, not only about the group, but about the industry. And, we all have, whether there's a dealership in a marketplace that is super successful or one that is extreme in the opposite direction. I don't want to say a failure, but just I was familiar with one where I would jokingly say it's where good managers go to die. And it's simply because
Wow.
they had a very complicated DMS, and even good spreadsheet managers would have difficult times pulling the proper data so that they could hold their staff not just accountable, but to truly coach them. I believe that it's difficult time-wise for anybody within management and fixed ops to be a leader by example. Every good service director, every good service manager does spend some time on the drive, but most of the time we're talking about 10 minutes, maybe 30 minutes or an hour. And it's not enough time to be able to help develop that staff, because in a good situation, you don't have to hire outside too often, except for a base level position, because you're growing your staff. And if you're growing your staff's talent, that becomes a theme in your organization, and everybody seems to move forward instead of just the select few.
Absolutely. Well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
Well, Mike, what do you think is more important, talent or hustle?
I believe hustle is 100% more important. There are very few things, especially needed within this industry, but overall that aren't at least coachable. I believe highly in emotional intelligence. And for a long time, I thought that was one of the traits that you were born with, or you just didn't develop it without having a personality that is highly inclined towards it. But what I realized was that it can be developed. It just takes a level of feedback, some direct feedback that is honest, and coming from a person who can put themselves not just in the shoes, but understand the perspective of the person that is looking at them. I'm just going to use the example of all the acronyms in this industry. There are a ton of them, and we
Yeah.
use them improperly with our customers. let alone when you're using them with new staff. It becomes extremely scary for them to ask because they don't want to have to keep asking what seems to be the same question, even though it's a completely different acronym. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's that kind of base level knowledge that we need to start to empower our staffs with, and then use that base that you develop within their first few months to continue to grow it. I'm a big believer. I'm going to quote Dave Ramsey in the momentum theorem, where essentially, if we start to move in a proper direction, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes practice, and I think that people practice their new job like an advisor very ardently for a few hours every single day when they first start it. They have to develop some skills. They have to learn the process, and that all does take practice. But once they get that base level down, if they don't have management that encourages the continued
Absolutely.
development of those skill sets, they stop practicing. I used to a degree teach the momentum theorem within the training sessions, but I would get people that say, like Dave Ramsey's line was, if you practice something for 10,000 hours at it, you're going to become world class. And so I would have people think, well, I'm a full-time employee. I work 2,000 hours or so a year. I've been doing this for 5 years. Why am I not world class? And that's because you stop practicing it inside of the first 60 days of your job, because you develop that base level skill, and you might practice it here and there, but it's for 5-10 minutes once or twice a week. And that takes decades to get to 1,000 hours, let alone 10,000 hours, because everybody wants to be good. Everybody really would like to be world class, but we don't teach practice. We just throw them to the wolves, and kind of it's sink or swim, right? You make it or you don't. And that is not good. That's how we end up with advisors that have been an advisor for 5 years, but have worked for 7 different dealerships.
Yep.
Let me tell you about a partner that's actually helping dealers get ahead, Global Dealer Solutions. If you've been wondering how to use AI the right way in your dealership, especially on the fixed side, these are the people to call. Their team gets it. Not just the tech, but the real challenges that dealerships face every day. We're talking about conversational AI that doesn't just respond, it converts. It books appointments, follows up with service leads, even answers customer questions with actual relevance. It's not replacing your team, it's making sure your team can focus on what matters most, closing ROs and building relationships. But GDS isn't just about AI. They train your staff, drive traffic, and tighten up processes so your results stick long after the tool is turned on. And everything they do is built around one goal: growth that is real. If you want more service traffic, better follow-up, and a partner that's always a step ahead, check them out. Visit gdsdealers.com, follow them on LinkedIn at gdsdealers, or just shoot them a message and ask, what would you do with my store? And see what they come back with. Global Dealer Solutions, process-driven, people first, always on it.
Yeah, it's and I think they want more. I think they need. So, for example, just listening to you, you developed all this, and I don't know what your tipping point was. I don't know if there was a mentor in your life. I don't know if you got to a point where it says, "No, somebody tapped into your why. Mike is even doing what he's doing, and wanted to find out where you wanted to go, and you trusted and were vulnerable enough to let them get you started." Because this is my 40th year in the business. Things are starting to change, but it's still leadership. I mean, they're managing, lighting fires under people, but they're not really inspiring from within and leading them and empowering them and understanding what it is to hold them accountable. Of course, numbers are everything, right? Which you guys all have. When did you get this, Mike?
I think so. I come from a small family of entrepreneurs. We had a lot of small businesses growing up. And there was.
So you were born with it? No, I'm just kidding.
I definitely had it. I had early exposure. I'll phrase it like that.
Okay.
But I had a family and then a couple early bosses, because they obviously, being entrepreneurs, they they had networks, and so they pushed me to do what I wanted to do, but knew who would help me grow in that job. But those first few jobs, I started on commission when I was 16 years old.
Right.
But it was with a small business owner of a family friend. And he also believed in this level of growth, but he phrased it very eloquently when he would say, you're brown and dying or you're green and growing. And I believe that if you just continue to try to develop your skill set, not just to meet the minimum, but to continue to grow. And then I really love to facilitate that growth in others. And that has led me to view all of my jobs in a slightly different perspective, because it's not just how can I get good and stand apart. It's how can we as an organization get good, stand apart, and then, truly rely upon one another. Because I guess I grew up in team sports. I love team sports. And I think that I can tell often if a new teammate or staff member of mine did experience team sports in youth, because they view their interaction with others differently. Um, Baseball is the easiest example, because I don't care if you have, like, if on my little league team I took a Rod from today, a grown man who can crush the ball, we're still not going to win every game, because if he gets up to bat four times, we might get 4 runs with 4 home runs. But if my pitcher or our defense on the other side can't keep up with just his 4 runs, or we don't have any offensive production, it doesn't matter how good one or two
No,
team members is. You're only as good as your bottom
I love it.
employee,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I've heard many, that said many different ways. So what I find in people, first of all, people are afraid of change, comfortable, whatever. And I believe, well, for me, life is at the edge of my comfort zone. That's just me. But change is necessary. And wherever I resist it the most, usually I find it's exactly where I needed to change. And if I would have just bought into that, whatever the fear was, and just walked through it, it would have dissipated, and I would have been a lot further down the road than I am right now. But it's like, okay, yes, change is necessary. Charity said this. I had an opportunity this morning. Growth is optional. And nobody really likes change except one person. I just love this. Crying babies. They want to be changed. But other than that, everybody else resists it. And you've taken a lot of risk. You're a risk taker, obviously. But you know what's on the other side. There's people, there's networks, and walking through that fear is extremely important. And so many times, well, this happened today. Tomorrow I'm going to get up. No, today is the only day we got. What are you going to do today? For me, it's really helpful most of the time to find out what people want and to show them a way to get that. But equally, that they want to know they count, they matter, they make a difference, and they're part of something bigger than just themselves. You can get that anywhere. And I see that slowly starting to happen now. And using the variable side as reference, I started selling cars in 1985. The average salesperson back then sold 10 cars. And in 2025, 40 years later, it's actually 9.6. It's 10, still 10.
Yeah. Still
okay.
10.
So is it all the tools and et cetera? It's like there's 5 or 6 main objections, and it's like they can't even answer those objections. That's really not their fault. That's a leadership thing, don't you think?
I believe it is a leadership thing, but it's also one has to inspire to grow.
Yes.
I'm going to use the example of we've been in the industry for a long time. It's disturbing to me how many people, when I genuinely have rapport, that they'll answer this question honestly, but I'll meet a lot of salespeople, and one of the first questions I ask as I get close to them is, "What's your favorite sales book?" And a large number of them have never even read a sales book, but yet they've been in sales for 20 years. So you have to desire a level of growth yourself before you'll accept the change. But I do believe you're right. They fear the unknown, but fear is just false evidence appearing real, and it can
That's
become
right.
overwhelming in your head if you won't try to take the steps to understand what is unknown. Because once you understand what is unknown, the fear will diminish, if not entirely, greatly.
Most people, the stuff they and everything I say, I at times I still have challenges with, depending on what it is. But I look for opportunities to grow, and it's usually where I'm most uncomfortable. From I never would you I would have said never, and I don't use that often. Do public speaking, and it's a tremendous fear for everybody, to get up in front of people, your peers, etc., and to be judged, or all those eyeballs are on you, and it's like, you don't even know what to say next. Well, everybody starts in the same place, right? At the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
What I find through worry and fear is that time and time again, those things that you were worried about or that you feared didn't even happen, or didn't even happen that way. And yet we spend all this time, sometimes
On the what ifs.
Yeah. Yeah. What
Yes.
if that happens? What if you're 66 and you look back, and because of the what ifs, you didn't accomplish a damn thing?
I truly believe that it's because, as a society, or maybe an individual, but I find myself, when I'm looking at the unknown, it's easier for me to think about the bad that can come out of that versus the good, because the bad seems so much closer when you're dealing with change than the good will. My mind, at least, definitely will center around those, and so a lot of times I write them down, and then I just will check them off. Well, that's got almost a 0% chance of happening. That's just an irrational fear. And then as I work that list down, my fears start to subside because I've already eliminated half of them.
Yes.
But if you don't go through and strategically think about each one of those fears, you will sit and dwell on it. And that small fear can overcome a huge benefit that you just won't allow yourself to look at because you can't get past this one individual fear.
That's right. Yeah, we could spend hours just on that alone, because the fear of the known and fear of the unknown, that's all there is. And boy, people, even though they know the consequences are dire, at least they know what the consequences are going to be, because it's a known quantity versus walking through that other side, especially when all those people, mostly family, but friends, neighbors, business, they're all saying, oh, you can't do that. I tried that. That won't work. That's not that. You're making a mistake. I mean, I was told that all my life. A lot of people are. And it's like, boy, once you walk through and way outside of that comfort zone, there's a lot of great people there if they see you reaching out like that, because they've been there. They understand what it's like. I think it's tremendous that you recognize that. And you probably instilled that in a lot of people, don't you?
I do my best. I really, that's my favorite interaction with people, that just the possibility of letting people know that they too are capable. They have said talent. They have just either chosen not to implement it or to develop it. But there are very few things that aren't taught. Like, I'm going to use sales as an example. You'll hear people argue that you're either a born salesman or you're not. I truly believe everybody is a born salesman. And if you don't believe me, watch a 2 or 3-year-old that understands how good candy tastes.
Yes.
In the line in front of you at a Walmart or a Target. They immediately
He's got his selling shoes on, baby.
Techniques.
Yeah.
Yes, they know what they're doing. They look at what they want. They do their best to try to build excitement in their parent for, if you get me that, this is how excited I'm going to be. We can do this together. And then, they're not super skilled at it. So if the first answer is no, they'll maybe offer 1 or 2 benefits, especially if you talk about like a 4 or 5-year-old, like, well, if you get me that, I'll clean my room, I'll buckle my seatbelt, I'll do whatever. And if that's still a no, they immediately go to
Crying.
Yes, disappointment and trying to get their way through guilt. Yeah. And what ends up happening, I think, with many people is that gets, I don't want to say beat out of them, but it's so highly discouraged that they take those small lessons and apply them across their entire life. That, well, if I don't think the answer is going to be yes, I'm not even going to ask the question. And that's when you lose your ability to sell, I think.
Yeah, everybody's selling. We're selling our kids. We're selling our husbands, wives, friends. I mean, we're always selling. But when you talk about a sales career, oh no, I could never do that. But you're right, and I think it's really important too, particularly from that early age, not being. So if they want to go to McDonald's, right? They want the toy. They don't even want the food. They want the toy. McDonald's has done an amazing job, all right? Or they want to play in the playground or whatever the case may be, and they make all these promises, and then they get wildly out of control. And you say, okay, we're not coming back here again. And then you come right back there again instead of, there's no accountability, a lot of codependency and enabling going on that has other adverse effects. And this is not a kid show talking about children, but this is great stuff, man.
But your example rolls right over to a service advisor.
Thank you for bringing it up, Mike.
That's not acceptable. We're not going to allow that anymore. And then 2 or 3 days later, you're so busy and occupied in another area that it occurs, and there's no negative repercussion for it. So now it's just a question in the service advisor's mind. Is it going to be policed? If it is policed, as long as I don't kind of openly talk about it or get caught, we're going to be okay. And that's how you end up with whatever it is inside of the system that you're going to have to run a report to uncover. And commonly, I'm going to go back to the good managers that are running the reports. There's only enough time in a month to do that so many times. So if maybe they're weekly, more than likely, a majority of the metrics are only reported to staff once a month. And once a month is not often enough to be able to create a corrective pattern of behavior to eliminate it. So
absolutely,
I'm going to use the example of a puppy that you're trying to teach potty training, right? If we all know that if you get his nose in it right after it occurs, there's a chance he will learn a lesson from that. But if you see an accident on the ground and a few hours later you drag your puppy back over there and say no, 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 he doesn't know what the heck you're talking about.
No.
And I think, and a lot of times, an advisor or even a service manager looking at it from a fixed ops director or a dealer principal's mindset, they only get a chance to manage that once a month. And that whole experience that they're talking about happened 3 weeks ago. So now it's difficult to truly recreate the circumstances. The victim or the staff that is trying to be managed has got plenty of time to develop excuses, and none of it can be proved. So if we can get them that data more often, more frequent, and then expose the entire team to that data, it really does become much more easy to hold a level of accountability that I think a lot of dealerships don't find possible today.
Yeah, I know. And Cherry, we got a question, but I have to say that I was just reading an article in the Automotive News. He was on the show one time. Cherry, who was that? The guy at Retro Automotive News that we had on the podcast.
Not Dan Shine.
Yeah, Dan Shine. Yeah, Dan Shine. Yeah, I just recently saw an article, the CEO of Lithia, talking about the service numbers for 2024. I mean, he was pretty outspoken and lambasted how poor service was in 2024, and he right away knew it was a leadership and a people problem. It really is, and there was going to be sweeping changes in 25. Well, I look forward to being a part of those. I'm sure you do too. That's really great. All right, but this is. I don't think it's just me or you or us because we're in this side of things. There is a real presence about repeat referral retention, leadership, accountability. These things I'm hearing more and more about than I ever have in my career. Do you sense that as well?
I do. And I think it's because many of the tools that we're actually developing now to help support the system are data driven, if you will. I'm going to go back to when I first entered into the industry, where there were still dealerships in my neck of the woods in Nebraska that were handwriting ROs. Now, the only way to be able to actually manage that system is to truly do an RO review as a manager every night or every couple hours with your staff. But now that the systems are completely digitized, while they are exceptionally difficult to pull the data out of, it's possible.
Mhm.
So the more we can simplify that process, whether it be at a dealership or at Walmart, the difference is Walmart is so good at the data that they have started to create efficiencies upon efficiencies. If we can do that in our industry, even at the smallest level, we will all benefit from it.
And I think we are. Charity.
Sure. What KPIs do you watch most closely? Which ones do you think Chameleon favors as most important?
That it's a broad spectrum question. I think that each dealership has its own version. Obviously, we know RO counts and ELR, things like that. But I think getting into the weeds within some of those structures, looking at, for instance, penetration rate within certain op codes, uncovering that data so that it can be readily used and available, really does make a difference. I think that it's some of the small things that we provide that are exceptionally difficult to do, like even opcode reviews. I have, as a vendor in my life, gone through so many systems where I'm just going to use a service like we use my BG days, like a transmission fluid exchange. There probably are going to be 2, 3, maybe even 4 different opcodes within a system for that one service. There should not be 20. And what happens is that it's difficult to find those if they're not being used with great
No doubt.
regularity.
Mhm.
And so you have new staff that has been trained on the new version of the opcode, but you got some old dogs laying around there that have sold that service 150 times or 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And so they're still using the T flush opcode, which is, inefficient in everything. Maybe the price of the parts have been updated, but is that opcode tied properly to your grid? Has the ELR been looked at? Is your tech getting enough hours for a modern car versus one from just 10, 20 years ago? I used to think that a 10 or 20-year-old car was exceptionally old, but now it's commonplace. And the only reason that it's not commonplace in a lot of dealers is because they don't offer their customers any different experience than maybe an independent shop would. I don't believe that a lot of dealers purge customers because of pricing or availability or scheduling. It has to do with convenience and the lack of differentiation between what they offer and what Bob's Repair at the corner of their block offers.
Well said. And that's our direct competition. That obviously,
That's exactly.
Yeah, it affects repeat. Not only that, but they're starting to figure it out now. Tires and oil changes, critical. And they're it's just like they're setting. I have to share this. I probably do this in every show. So I have a Genesis G80, and
Mhm.
this has been about a year now, maybe a year and a half. So I called and scheduled an appointment, and I was there 30 minutes early, and I was 3 cars deep for oil change and a rotate and bounce. Finding out that wasn't going to happen, the rotate and bounce because they're staggered, and I completely spaced it out. But so by the time the advisor got up to me, he wasn't smiling. I mean, I saw no pep in his step, and I looked for these things. And here's what he asked me. I know you've probably never heard this. Do you have an appointment? Are you freaking kidding me? Right? I mean, this is the kind of stuff. Everything we're talking about is imperative, and these are all the things I think everybody's focusing on. But that was a horrible experience. And then it took way too long. No communication. Just communicate with people. Try to be as clear as you possibly can. Or how about hello, welcome, or welcome back? I'm so and so. What's your name? Something like that. You can get to the appointment thing, but start building that. It's all about. Are advisors any different than salespeople? Really, Mike?
No, not at all. The system at one point in time, I think, trained them to think that they were different.
Yeah.
But they are not. Just like up front, the difference is that on the front side, on variable, people are genuinely excited to make that purchase. I don't care what it is. It could be the new accessory that they're up front talking about buying for their car, or the entire new Escalade or G80 or whatever it is that they are excited to buy it. I don't believe that anybody hits their alarm in the morning and thinks, yeah, today
Right.
is oil change day,
Yeah,
baby.
baby. I might even get a rotating balance today too.
Yes.
Man, I might even go as
And
far as an alignment. What do you think?
And if I ran into a customer that even knew those terms and when they
Yeah.
were due, I would be
Right.
thrilled. But I think that allows customers a lot of times to dip their ladle into the advisor's bucket of happiness and joy. And if you aren't one of the first few customers to dip their ladle into that advisor's bucket, you're going to see an advisor that is only half full. And what ends up happening is then they are just walking through the basics of the interaction. And again, without looking at the benefits of what life would be like if I didn't approach you in that way, where I'm, a question like that always just killed me, because the way that I put myself into your perspective is, if I was asked that, the immediate feeling that I would have is, do I need one? Did I screw things up? Am I making it harder for you? Would I be in a better situation if I did make an appointment? Because the thing is you got them into your store. My favorite thing about being a service advisor is that no matter what, that customer that is in there, he's there to see you and he's going to buy something. It's the exact opposite scenario of walking around in a Best Buy where I don't really want help. I kind of know when I'm there. If I'm looking at TVs or wires or whatever the case is, if I need help, I'm going to go ask somebody. But other than that, everybody's been asked this, hey, welcome into Best Buy. Is there anything I can help you out with today? And
I'm
what's your
just
answer?
looking.
I'm just looking.
Condition response.
Nobody's bingo. Nobody says that on the service drive because they're nothing to look at. They're there to buy something. Are you going to be the one guy that can provide everything that they want, or are you going to be the guy that just takes their order?
Good point.
Very
Charity.
good. Yeah. Well, how about one more question, and we'll let you on with your day. How do you prepare your sales team to navigate longer sales cycles or increased scrutiny in dealer budgets post-COVID?
Wow.
That's a good question.
Wow. She's prepared. Let me tell you what.
So I believe in relationship marketing. And so my base sales technique takes longer to begin with, because what we deal with in this industry is exceptionally complicated. So until I can develop a relationship with my future client to truly understand their needs, I have a tough time selling them anything to begin with. So I think inherently by nature, I had come to this point in time prepared already to meet post-COVID environmental stress, if you will.
Mhm.
But I don't think that restrictions in budget or a change in societal norms and needs post-COVID has impacted the way that I deal with customers, which is to truly establish a base level of communication so that I can ask questions that not only he will answer, but he understands why the question is being asked, so that we can have a genuine exchange of information. Wow. And that has always taken more time. It's kind of why I truly believe, like, I think a good advisor, I'm going to relate this back to the drive, a great advisor could probably help 50 customers a day. We train them that way because their first job is usually on the express side of things, and they're dealing with way more customers than they should to begin with. But as we move over to the main shop, I am a true believer in that maybe 10 to 15 total customers per day, because that's how long it takes to truly develop the communication with the customer, because you're dealing with somebody who, they may have, I'll use your G80, spent 60, 70, 80, $90,000 on, and still never bothered to open up the glove box and open up their manual. I'm a man.
I know that's
I'm
not
an American.
True. No, yeah.
I do this in a lot of things in my life, but everything to do with my home, everything to do with my car, I at least want a base level of understanding, so I know from my own viewpoint what I am going to need to take care of. I don't budget for maintenance, but I am aware of the maintenance needs of my home and my car. So it just inherently gets built into the budget, if that makes sense.
Sure.
If I can make sure that my clients
Yeah.
at least are inherently aware of a need for data analytics, then we can really work through and discuss where the benefits lie, what a true ROI could be, because we have had dealers that have an ROI of 10,000% inside of day one, but it's only because they uncovered a piece of data that they had not seen
Oh,
inside
wow.
of their DMS. But I've also had dealers that have had an ROI on day one of maybe just one. And that's because they already had a level of efficiency built in, but the other areas that data analytics will help within their management, their leadership, their staff, it just slowly builds to the point where it's always positive. It's just a matter of how effective you were using cumbersome data before. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Makes sense.
Yes, it did. I do. I have a question because I know we're there. There's so many vendors. There's so much noise out there. General managers, fixed ops directors, etc. It's like they don't have time for anything. So you get them, you get their attention, whether it's in person, online, or combination of both, or whatever it takes. What differentiates you from other vendors in the marketplace?
So people are going to take the path of least resistance. And in data, it is difficult to understand the amount of resistance that you are going to sign yourself up for. I'm going to use some of the examples that I had as a vendor, and I would watch many dealer groups try to find a solution only to find one that in the demonstration worked flawlessly. But in order to customize for their dealer group or their own individual store, it it could provide that level of data, but the amount of work on the front end to make sure that the proper accounts were feeding into the proper
Sure.
reports, the labor types were all there. That is where new modern information systems and AI has really come into play to the point where I'm able to offer a solution that requires maybe 25, 30 minutes of dealer setup on their side on the front end. And then everything from there is accurate. We've got a team that really does kind of focus on that and then reaches out as often as we need to because we're, again, through AI, I can model the data so that it's only reporting to me what I need to know. So I don't have to search through a million reports to get the small pieces of data that I need to adequately take care of my client. We set our own benchmarks in our system. So, for instance, certain users have certain benchmarks for how often they should be in the system. The system has certain benchmarks so that we can see if either somebody isn't logging in or perhaps somebody hasn't been assigned to a proper system. Like if you hire a new technician, for instance, we know once you reach a threshold of X number of technicians that haven't been added into the system properly, we can proactively help you get that done, reach out. So the maintenance is minimal. I think there are a lot of competition out there that can provide many of the data points that we help provide, but they're far more cumbersome to get working properly. And that has created a unique competitive advantage on our side.
Yes, it has. They don't know that. They might assume or think based upon their prior experience, but and I don't even profess to know. But what I saw and what I see out there, it is light years ahead of the competition. It is truly an amazing cutting edge product that I think every dealer needs, and you probably believe that too, don't you?
I 100% believe that. Absolutely. I think just while we're on it, the biggest differentiation is that the high line, the system shows you as much data as you want or as little data as you want without having to configure it yourself every time you enter
Mm-hmm.
into the system. All of this data is available in your DMS. It might take exporting a report, plugging it into Excel, and working a bunch of math on your side to be able to uncover these data points. But it's all there. This just, again, path of least resistance makes it so that it's all there. You choose what you're going to focus on. And again, it makes it so that you can then allow your staff to start to see that data as often as they would like, so that when they get called in for that review, they know if this is going to be a good meeting or a bad meeting, depending upon how much red or green they see in their system. Because again, with customizable benchmarks, you can very quickly start to put focus on your staff and not just let those good old dogs hit the numbers, but actually create a benchmark where the team can hit it, and then the benchmark can be slightly increased so that every month there's an improvement, instead of just every month a few members of your staff feel like they're completely failing and
Sure.
aren't getting anywhere near the benchmark.
Well said. And we, as usual, there's like 4 or 5 more questions we didn't even get close to. But are there any questions that we didn't ask you today that you would wish we did?
No, I guess the only difference that I'd like to really point out in what we do is that this company is exceptionally good at transferring the demonstration that we provide, or the demo, into actionable intelligence that will change your business operations. I think commonly you are, as a manager in FixedOps, shown products that if they could work that way, that would be phenomenal. But often they don't, and they don't translate from demonstration to real life use inside of your organization. That is one area that we excel at and that I am very proud to represent.
Well, thank you very much. Charity, any thoughts, lingering questions?
No, that's great. Great conversation, Mike.
Yeah, it was. So
Perfect.
Everybody out there, that's a wrap for the latest WTF. Oh, what the FixedOps to all of you out there. And I'd just like to say we are so happy to have had this time with you. Mike Keene, Vice President Sales and Chief Revenue Officer at Chameleon Limited. How do they find you? How do they get in touch with you?
So ChameleonLimited.com is the easiest place to find a generalized selection of our offerings and our contacts. If not, you can always reach out where our emails or phone numbers are listed on there as well.
Okay. When this starts to come out, check it out. And I know you hear a lot of stuff, but you owe it to yourself to at least reach out. If you heard something here that just makes you think, inquire, get enough information to know what you're either going to say no to or you don't have time for, because it could be revolutionary and just change your whole culture and life, which is what we're all looking for today. Mike, once again, thank you. So when this comes out, like him, love him, share him, reach out to him, the company, et cetera. Get as much information as you can, because I've seen it. It's truly amazing. And if I say it, it must be true, right? Not really. But anyway, it is, though, just so you know. Charity, thank you. Patrick, thank you. And Mike, once again, thank you for coming on today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Jim,
Mike.
Charity, Patrick, thank you guys as well.
Yeah.